Hey, we are back.
Hey, it's episode 161 of the Horror Guys. I'm Kevin.
I'm Brian.
And we're going to talk about some horror movies this week.
Yeah, we got some good ones this week.
We do.
We're going to watch a wild collection of films from the new coming-of-age witchcraft story, Hellbender, to a classic early 2000s ghost story with Ghost Ship.
And two really good vampire films, 30 Days of Night, and I see your note here says it's somewhat lesser quality sequel, Dark Days. And I prefer to think of it as in more optimistic terms because it was so much better than I expected.
You'd heard it was terrible?
Yeah.
Okay.
And granted,
it's not terrible.
And you're not wrong. It's not as good as the first one, but boy, that was surprisingly good. You know.
Yeah. And, of course, we'll have a short film as always. We didn't have a short film last week. We had all those Scream movies.
Yep.
No time for a short when you got 5 films.
No time for screaming.
But we've always got
screams.
Time for extra films on the horrorbulletin.com newsletter.
Yeah, you did a couple extras. You did
This
Halloween
weekend.
5, The Revenge of Michael Myers from 1989.
Yeah, Halloween 5.
And How to Make a Monster, a kind of a classic from 1958.
Yeah,
that was really interesting.
Last week we talked about Scream and how it was all meta about horror movies and the film industry. And
this was
How to
very
Make a
meta.
Monster was the same kind of thing, only much, much older.
A horror makeup guy in the industry. Yeah. Behind the scenes. Yeah, horror within horror kind of thing.
The makeup
man
gets
was pretty
fired
cool.
and gets his revenge.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's start off with 30 Days of Night from 2007. Directed by David Slade. Written by Steve Niles, Stuart Beatty, Brian Nelson. Stars Josh Hartnett, Melissa George, and Danny Houston. Runtime 1 hour 53 minutes. And I think this is the first thing I'd ever seen Danny Houston in.
And he was good.
And he's been in lots of things since. I think this may have been the first thing anybody noticed him in. Mm-hmm. And he didn't even speak in this.
Well,
very little.
Yeah, he did. Well, most of what he did was that guttural language that the vampires have.
Which wasn't even a real language,
Yeah, they made it up for the movie. Yeah. Vaguely Russian-y kind of sounding.
It did sound kind of Russian-y, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
Hour and 53 minutes, trailer in the show notes. All right, spoiler-free.
Vampires don't have to worry about sunlight if the sun never rises, right? Well, that's the basic premise here, and it's a pretty good one. Way, way up north in winter, the sun sets and stays down. And vampires, they are dangerous and creepy here. The effects are great, and the acting is good, and this was an all-around winner that we enjoyed as much on our second viewing as the first time we saw it.
It's really good, yes. Yeah, the sequel we can argue all day about, but the first one everybody likes, I think. It's just the vampires are so vicious.
Yeah.
They're animals.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one, I think it tried to humanize them a little bit too much. They were a little too civilized. This one, though, you would not want to run into these vampires.
No, you would not.
They don't sparkle.
No.
All right, well, we see that Barrow, Alaska is surrounded by 80 miles of barren wilderness, cut off every winter for 30 days of night. And we heard that it was actually more than that, wasn't it?
Yeah, Yeah, the actual days of night is longer than 30 days.
It's like 40-something.
And they also kind of shrunk down Barrow, Alaska for this movie. Well, it's dated now, too. I mean, this was 22 years ago, but Barrow, Alaska is bigger than in this movie.
It's got a population of like 100,000 people.
And more people surrounding the area, too. And, it's not, they make it seem like it's a teeny tiny little town with nobody else around anywhere, which works good for the movie.
I'm sure it's pretty isolated in the winter, but there's a lot more people than they showed in this.
And bigger, yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a huge, dark ship just off the coast, apparently frozen in the ice. A very cold-looking man trudges through the snowy hills until he sees the town in the distance. It is now the last day of sunlight. Eben Olson finds a pit full of cell phones out in the snow. They've all been burned. What could that be all about? Well, they watched the last sunset for nearly a month. Eben is the town sheriff, and they changed the population sign from whatever it said to read Population 152. Most people leave when it gets cold. Eben and his wife Stella are separated, and she's waiting for the last flight out at the airport.
Last minute.
Yeah, a lot of people can't stand a month in the dark, so everybody's leaving town. Meanwhile, across town, someone kills all the sled dogs. Stella's truck hits some road equipment, and she has to call Eben for help. Eben sends Deputy Billy to go help her while he checks out the dead dogs. Stella misses the plane and is now trapped in Barrow for a month. Oops.
Oops.
Well, Eben gets called to the utilidor, which we had to look up what a utilidor was.
It's a conduit because they can't do underground pipes and wiring and stuff in the conditions in Alaska. So it's basically an above-ground tunnel.
The waterworks.
Yeah, an above-ground hallway where the electrical and water and stuff like that will run the utilities.
Yeah, so he goes there for a vandalism problem. Well, they have a huge trash grinder, and they find a bunch of helicopter parts in it. Someone destroyed the town's only helicopter. So let's see, we've got sled dogs, cell phones, and helicopters.
Somebody's trying to cut this town off.
Certainly seems that way. The power goes off at the town's cell and radio tower, and then something kills the attendant rather viciously. All the internet and phones go out shortly after that. Well, there's a weird stranger at the town diner, and he wants to eat raw hamburger. Eben arrests the guy with Stella's help, and he immediately suspects the stranger is behind all the vandalism. The stranger seems to think something is coming. You're so helpless against what's coming. Power goes off all over town. Eben goes to the cell tower and finds Gus the attendant's head on a pike. Something then kills John and Allie, who lost their dogs earlier. Eben and Stella soon realize that the town is under an attack of some kind. This is confirmed when someone jumps on the roof of the car when they get back to town.
Yeah, there's no doubt at that point.
We finally see the attackers. It's a clan of vampires, all speaking a strange foreign language. They say to remember to separate all the heads from the bodies, and there's a couple of the vampires who appear to be leaders, but Marlowe appears to be the main boss. We should have come here ages ago, he says. Yeah, there's like 30 vampires probably.
Pretty good size
There's only
group.
like 3 or 4 of them that really get any screen time. They're very recognizable.
Definitely featured ones.
You got the leader, and this really scary-looking bald guy, and the woman vampire. And
those are the main
that's
ones.
the ones I remember.
Yeah, there's a couple
There's-
bald ones.
Yeah,
and-
you see a couple in the background
you
here and there.
you do see the same ones over, but it's the main ones you see repeatedly.
Yeah. A group of people take shelter in the diner. Eben's brother Jake is with them. It's soon open season on humans in the town as the vampires play without anything to stop them. Eben sends the survivors to go hide in an abandoned house's attic while he and Stella go after bear traps. Several vampires attack their car, and they finally get a look at what's been killing them. Jake suggests that they're vampires, but that's impossible, right? Pretty much everyone is now hiding in the attic, including an old man with dementia. That's going to end badly.
Mm-hmm.
The vampires are moving from house to house, and the group makes plans to move to the utilidor, where they can last the month. They hear a woman screaming for help outside, but they realize that she's bait.
Yeah, the vampires are all watching from the rooftops.
Eben,
She's walking down the middle of the street. That's a creepy scene.
yeah, don't go help her. Eben finds John, whose dogs were killed. He'd been attacked, but they didn't take his head, so he's one of them now. That's why they were talking about cutting off everybody's heads.
Yeah, they turn.
Eben hacks his head off with an axe, and back at the house, the old dementia man starts causing trouble and escapes outside. That goes just about exactly like you'd expect. On day 18, a snowstorm kicks in, so they use that cover to move. They stop at the general store and kill a little girl vampire. Stella figures out that they don't like sunlight, and she knows where there are some grow lamps. Somebody's a pothead.
Mm-hmm.
Eben runs to Grandma's house and starts the generator.
It's Grandma. She's got cancer and chemo. And
That's the story,
That's what
yeah.
she says. Yeah, the pot helps with her nausea.
Well, he gets the grow lights ready as the vampires approach. Meanwhile, the other humans head to the police station. The vampires are suspicious that it's a trap, but one of them charges in and is burned by the lights. The vampires then cut off the generator, so that's the end of that plan.
Yeah, it's brief, but it sure is effective.
Yeah, it burns well.
Yeah.
Bo decides that it's his turn next, and he gets in a trencher and kills a bunch of the vampires with his shotgun, and then several more as he blows himself up with dynamite.
Yeah, and that was pretty cool how they had, the degrees of damage. They could take, stabbing and hitting and gunshots, even shotguns.
You run over him with a tractor, though.
Yeah, and actually, grinds them up into pieces and blows them apart into pieces. And yeah, they do have a limit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Day 27 arrives, and they're still hiding in the police station. They see a signal across the street. They think Billy is still alive. He killed his own wife and kids so they wouldn't be killed by the vampires, but then he couldn't do it himself. When they get back to the police station, everyone is gone, so they try to head to the Utilidor again. The interior of the Utilidor is a big maze of tunnels and passages, and a vampire attacks Billy and Eben, but he ends up in the grinding machine.
Yeah, that was Chekhov's grinding machine right at the beginning. I remember. Somebody's going to end up in that.
Stella is trapped hiding under a car outside as the vampires surround her. Eben notices that the streets are filling with oil. The vampires must have burst the pipeline to destroy the town and all evidence of their existence. Yeah, I guess if you wind up in a town full of dead, bloodless people laying around with holes in their neck and decapitated, you're going to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
If the whole town burns down...
And blown up, yeah.
Maybe not.
Uh-huh.
In desperation, Eben injects himself with vampire blood, hoping to fight the monsters as one of them. As he starts to turn, he walks to where the others are waiting. He and Marlowe fight one-on-one as the others watch. Marlowe loses badly. As the sun begins to come up, the others leave. They get out of town fast.
And once he beats Marlowe, the others I think they just recognize him as the alpha, and they don't descend on him.
Yeah, but he'd been turned to a vampire like 15 minutes before.
Yeah, but
you'd think the old one would be stronger and smarter.
You'd think so.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well, Eben and Stella then sit and watch the sunrise, and Eben turns to dust.
And where did those vampires go?
They got out of town fast. Back to the ship, I imagine, but that's a long ways off.
Yeah, and the sun was coming up fast. Well, no, it was sometime later, because they had time to chill, and they were sitting watching the sunrise.
Still, the vampires had to have been moving pretty quick
to
get all the
somewhere.
way back to the boat.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Isolation is often a good part of horror films, and this one nailed that in the first 10 minutes. It's the perfect location. The sets in the town really make the film, and people really do live in places like this, but it's definitely not easy or always safe. Usually, though, they're just worried about bears.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, bears and wolves.
There's worse thing than bears out there.
Yeah.
Well, the mostly non-vocal screaming of the vampires and the fact that they don't speak English helps the monsters from being at all sympathetic. These are monsters. They are very animalistic and don't seem like they could ever live in real civilization. They're almost pure beast, and they are very smart, but they're also really, really messy eaters.
They sure are. I mean, maybe when they clean up and behave themselves, they were wearing clothes. Marla was even wearing a suit.
Yeah.
They might be able to blend in somewhat. But
with those big teeth.
Well,
they didn't suck in their teeth like most vampires,
did
they?
They didn't.
Yeah, they're not going to blend in.
Not very well.
This is absolutely one of the best recent vampire films.
I think so.
Yeah. And then there was a sequel.
They made another one.
30 Days of Night, Dark Days from 2010. Directed by Ben Kitai, written by Steve Niles, Ben Kitai, and Ben Templesmith. Stars Kylie Sanchez, Reese Quarro, and Diora Baird. Hour 32 minutes. Trailer in the show notes. And I'll do this spoiler-free this time. It's a surprisingly well-done sequel to the first movie, with a different actress playing the heroine. She sells being the same person and does a great job, but the supporting cast are all good. The story has some issues and raises some questions, but it's a very watchable and entertaining movie overall. And Kevin liked it better than I did, but I will say it's probably not as bad as some people would tell you.
Okay, yeah, fair enough, yeah.
What happens?
Well, we pick up right where we left off, with Eben turning to dust, as Stella, who looks like a different actress now, watches. And Eben... They don't really show Eben's face, or they barely show him in this movie. It's a different actor, too. It's not Josh Hartnett again.
It's the same two characters, but completely recast.
Yeah, but she's like the star of this movie. So, well, anyway, she recaps what happened. No one believed what really happened, so they rebuilt the town. I never wanted a war, she says, as credits roll. And we read that they have been in several large cities. There's been attacks. And someone named Dane has written to her explaining that they're in Los Angeles now. Well, she tells the truth to groups of people, but people laugh. She says every time that she gives one of these talks, she's like, trying to public speak about this, every time a couple vampires show up. Well, this time she rigged up the auditorium with sun lamps, and she hits the lights. A couple of the audience members go up in flames, and she's immediately arrested. Agent Norris of the FBI wants her to say it was a hoax. We don't get any details, but could they be in on it?
I bet they could be.
He is, yeah. It's pretty clear right from the beginning. He's a Renfield. You know? Well, when she gets home to her, gets to her motel room, there's a bunch of people in there, all sent by Dane. And they all lost someone to vampires, and no one believes them either. The group has been hunting vampires for years. There's Amber, Todd, and Paul, and they want Stella to join them in the hunt. Amber spots a vampire outside, and they all wait for him to come in. And enough bullets to the head does do the trick. Stella decides to go with the hunters. Yeah, that was a good scene. Dealing with that vampire.
You shoot him enough.
Jam him in the
It'll
door.
work.
And yeah. Well, Paul explains that Lilith is the leader of the vampires, and Agent Norris is, they call him the bug eaters.
The Renfields.
The human helpers. Yeah. If they could kill Lilith, the entire network would fall apart. They go to meet Dane, who is a vampire himself. He was only superficially wounded, and he's been able to hold on to his humanity. Well, he's got a whole refrigerator full of blood.
And there's all these trust issues at this point. Is
There
he
is.
really, or is he selling them out? Is he a turncoat, or is he a human? And what's up with him?
And we all wonder. Yeah. And she really wonders, especially. Well, he explains that Lilith and her people are hiding in subterranean tunnels under the city. And Lilith was behind the attack on Barrow. So that gets Stella fired up because she wants revenge. They killed Eben and all her friends. Meanwhile, Agent Norris goes to see Lilith, and Lilith specifically asks about Stella, and she's not pleased with his answer. Stella and the other three hunters go into the sewers that lead to the tunnels where Lilith is supposed to be, and this seems like a really bad plan. We thought. Well, they soon find a man hanging upside down, bleeding into a bucket. And, not surprisingly, it's an ambush. Todd is bitten and starts to change. Stella shows the others how to kill a vampire. Night falls, and Dane comes to lead them out. Well, they capture one of the vampires and take him home to interrogate. He explains that there will soon be another feast where the sun doesn't rise, and only Lilith knows which town they will be targeting. Well, Stella explains that the sun sets in 3 days in Alaska for, the winter. Well, they let him go and follow him through the apparently abandoned streets of Los Angeles. Yeah, that was funny.
There's nobody else in town.
It's just them and this vampire they're trailing. And they do blow up a bunch of vampires, but Lilith isn't there. And they rescue a girl prisoner, Jennifer. And for some reason, Stella and Paul decide to stop and have sex.
Hey, let's stop in the middle of this vampire hunt and get naked.
Across town, Lilith orders Norris to kill an innocent to prove his loyalty. He tears out his throat with his human teeth. And Lilith approves, feeds Norris her blood.
Nom, nom, nom,
You can be in the club now. Well, Jennifer explains that the vampires brought her to town on a large ship. She thinks that Lilith stays on the ship. And Norris shows up. He's a vampire now. Kills Dane as the others drive away. So
I guess Dane was for
Dane
real.
was for real on their side, yeah. Jennifer leads them to the ship. Stella wants to board the ship and stop it from leaving, but Paul says we don't even have a plan. And their last plans worked so well. Well, Stella, Paul, and Amber go inside the ship and see that dead vampires can be reconstituted and resuscitated with blood if they have their head, if they're intact. Well, they find the captain, who says the ship is headed to Wainwright, Alaska. Before they can get any more exposition, the vamps grab Amber and drag her away. And Paul and Stella are captured, and finally get to meet Lilith, who orders the others to bleed them out. Lilith was cool. I liked her. Norris cuts Paul, but then fights Stella, which goes badly. They don't really know how the ship works, so they just start smashing everything to sabotage it. Lilith bites Paul. Stella and Lilith fight. Stella hides in Lilith's bathtub of blood until just the right moment, and she leaps up and hacks off Lilith's head. And that was cool. That was a good thinking, because Lilith bathes in blood, literally, and she's going around gloating to Stella, I can smell your blood, and following her through this catacomb of, tunnels and everything.
Can't smell it if you're hiding in all the
and
other
then
blood.
Suddenly, I gotcha. Yeah. Well, the other vampires come in and step aside, letting her go. She's the alpha now. She goes up to the bridge and calls the Coast Guard, and naturally it was all kept secret afterwards. Stella goes back to Barrow and digs up Eben's body. She cuts herself and drips blood onto his burnt remains, and then she waits.
Waits for
For
a
the
sequel.
resuscitation, yeah.
30 Days of Night, Part 3, which never happened. Not yet, anyway. Well, it definitely adds to the lore of the vampires, but it does raise some questions. The monsters in the first film are so viciously feral, most of the ones here feel positively civilized in comparison. Having a queen vampire gives them a weakness that the first group didn't have. Like the Borg in Star Trek.
Yeah, a little bit.
They stopped being scary once the queen showed up. Mm-hmm. Why do they all dress like goth kid vampire wannabes? The ones in Barrow dress like normal people. These guys, some of them look like they watched Dark City too many times.
Yeah.
There's this one guy that stands out. He's like 8 feet tall, bald, and I swear that costume came straight from Dark City.
Mm-hmm.
These vampires seem to be surviving just fine in the big city, so what was the need for another Barrow-like attack? A long sea voyage seems to be a big risk for a few weeks-long hunting trip when they all aren't, and they're not short of food at all in Los Angeles.
No, they seem to be doing fine.
Okay, it's all right. The idea of vampire hunters has been done a lot better than this. These guys were dumb.
Oh, they had some bad
Let's walk
plans.
into the sewers in the middle of the daylight and not have any weapons or preparation or anything.
Let's go down where it's dark and the vampires can fully function.
Yeah. This one drags a bit in a few places, and there's lots of plot holes. Lots and lots of plot holes. Still, it seemed better on the second rewatch than it was when it first came out. Maybe I just had higher expectations after watching the first film, which was so good.
Yeah, see, I just had really low expectations.
You had not seen it
going in.
before.
I had not seen it before, and I was really impressed. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we watched a short film.
Moving Day.
Moving Day from 2022. Written and directed by Craig Lowe. Stars Natalia Castellan, Greg Santos, Erica Medina, and Asher Sears. 4 big long minutes long. And of course you can watch this online. There's a link in the show notes. What happens?
Well, stuff happens. It's
It
moving.
does.
It's moving day. They move. How much of your partner's past should you really unpack? A newly engaged couple moves in together. They quickly discover some skeletons should stay in the closet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No more secrets. Let's just keep everything out in the open, okay? She says.
Yeah. Well, why does that big box have a sad face on it?
And sometimes even snuggle bears can be scary.
And that's all we got to say.
Yeah, it's very good. Go watch it now.
Yep. Very short, very effective.
Very
Yeah,
short.
Well worth it.
That's the thing about these shorts. Even if you don't like them, you haven't spent a lot of time on them. And they're free to watch, so hey, why not?
Yeah.
Watch them all.
YouTube them.
You tube them. I tubed them. You should tube them too.
That's right.
Ghost Ship, 2022. Another much maligned movie.
No, I've always wondered about that. You know, if you step in it, how do you know that you did? Would you notice?
In a ghost ship?
Oh, ship.
Ship!
Oh,
Ship!
Oh, okay.
Boat!
Oh, like
Ghost
a boat.
boat.
Oh,
Ghost ship.
Ghost boat. Okay.
Row, row, row your ship.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay. Although some people did confuse the two all the way through, I can tell you that. From 2002, directed by Steve Beck, written by Mark Hanlon and John Pogue, stars Juliana Margulies, Gabriel Byrne, Ron Eldard. Hour 31 minutes. Trailer in the show notes as usual. Spoiler free. It starts with a heck of an opening scene,
Oh, does it ever?
and then it's okay after that. Maybe that was just it. This opening scene was too good.
Mm-hmm.
The effects are good. The acting is decent from some powerhouse actors. The script is okay, but kind of by the book. It's entertaining and a good watch, but peaks quickly, then tapers off somewhat. Yeah. Notice here the movie poster says Sea of Evil. And then under that, way down at the bottom, it says Ghost Ship. Why didn't they just call it Sea of Evil or something?
Sea of Evil. That's
Sea
catchy.
Evil.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Well, we begin on a cruise ship. As credits roll, the lounge singer is entertaining the formally dressed dancers in the ballroom. It's all very elegant. And from the hairstyles, it appears to be in the late 50s.
It's actually an open deck area,
Yeah, it's a big flat open deck.
which is relevant to what
It's not
happens
a
next.
ballroom, right?
Yeah.
A little girl looks really bored. The captain asks the little girl if she wants to dance. Someone starts an engine somewhere, and a wheel starts to spool a cable very, very quickly. The cable then whips through the crowd, cutting every one of the people in half except for the little girl, who is too short. They all look surprised as their clothes, arms, legs, and torsos fall into a pile on the floor. Everyone dies.
Except the little girl on the deck.
Yeah, I don't know how fast and how strong that cable would have to be moving to do that.
Oh, yeah. It was, yeah, don't think about the physics of that.
Yeah, that
But it was
doesn't seem
still
likely.
made for an awesome scene.
Okay, so sometime in the present day, Murphy, Dodge, Greer, Epps, and the crew of the Arctic Warrior rush to save a sinking ship. They are salvage experts. They're very good at what they do, and Ferryman, some young guy at a bar that they don't know, comes over and tells them that he knows about an abandoned ship in international waters. Their own boat has problems, and they've all been at sea too long, but they decide to go after it because they are greedy. After a bit of glitchiness with their radar, they soon find the ship, and actually, they run right into the side of the thing.
Yeah, where is it? Oh, there
Clonk.
it is. Yeah, reverse engines.
Well, Murphy knows all about the Antonia Gracia, which has been missing since 1962. It's a rusted-up mess, but it's intact and it still floats. Greer and Ferryman stay behind on the Arctic Warrior, where the radio stops working. Convenient.
Mm-hmm. Isolated. Cut off.
Epps thinks that she saw a little girl downstairs, but no one else saw anything. They find a digital watch, which means someone has been here a lot more recently than 1962. They all return to their own ship for the night. Morning comes, and they learn that the Antonia has a hole and is sinking. Greer wants to call for help, but Murphy says they don't want extra visitors, 'cause greedy.
Greedy, but don't want to share. Don't
Well,
want to take
San-
a chance on sharing.
While Santos starts to repair their own engines, the others work on fixing the hole in the big ship. Murphy checks out the captain's cabin. Epps finds evidence of old gunfire in the empty swimming pool, and then sees the girl again. She falls and bleeds into a hole in the floor, and the pool then fills with blood as soon as she leaves.
Ghost blood.
Nobody sees that. Well, we do. I guess that counts.
Yes, we count.
Epps and Ferryman find several bodies that have been there for less than a month. Everyone finds little things that shouldn't be there. Ferryman finds a whole crate full of gold bars. Several crates.
Hot diggity.
Speaking of greedy, now they got a payoff. They all decide to take the gold and leave the big ship to sink. Who needs a giant ship if you got gold?
That's right.
Meanwhile, on the Arctic Warrior, a canister of propane turns itself on.
Oops.
Opens right up.
Oops.
The little girl screams for them to stop, but the boat explodes, killing Santos. They all argue about what to do next.
And then they're trapped on the ghost ship.
The sinking ghost ship.
Mm-hmm.
Dodge and Munder eat 40-year-old beans out of a can, which turn to maggots in front of their eyes.
Well, I was thinking about that. It didn't turn to maggots. It was
Oh, they
already.
just didn't see it.
They didn't see
Yeah.
it because of the charm
Magic,
or whatever.
uh-huh.
Yeah, the magic that they were under. Yeah.
Yeah, it looked good at the time.
Yeah, they were going on about all this delicious food, and they're passing it back and forth and trying it, and then the spell wears off or whatever influence it was.
Actually, though, what is the likelihood of beans in a can having live maggots in it after 40 years?
If the can had been punctured, but no, it'd more likely just be rotten or or spoiled.
I think
but,
so. It
yeah.
would be all dried out, powdered in the bottom or something. But
But it made for a good effect.
okay, yeah. It's a movie. Don't think too hard.
Mm-hmm.
Murphy starts drinking again, this time with the ghost of the dead captain. Greer whines about making bad choices until the ballroom just reassembles itself. Epps tries to track down what happened to Katie, the only child registered to be on board, and finds her corpse hanging in her room. Katie's ghost talks to Epps. The captains talk about gold being cursed. This isn't the first ship that's died there. Francesca seduces Greer in the ballroom and tricks him into falling down an elevator shaft. Katie explains that all the ghosts are trapped here just like she is. She talks about him, who has a quota of souls to fill.
Who's him?
Murphy attacks Epps, thinking she's the ghost of Santos. Ferryman interrupts the fight, and they lock Murphy up for everyone's safety, and then they start working to repair the damaged hull. They patch the holes and start pumping out water.
Yeah, they figure as long as they're trapped there, they're going to make a go of making the ship work. or at least
beats sinking.
or at least not sink, and make it somewhat steerable, and
Katie leads Epps to Greer's body. Then she shows Epps what happened to the crew and passengers. Beyond the cable accident, many were poisoned as well.
Yeah, there's a flashback that shows them all being hunted down. The ones that survived the poisoning, were killed, and
Yeah, we don't know now that cable thing was even an accident.
Oh no, it was not. No, it was deliberate. There's no doubt of that.
Robbers looking for that gold killed the survivors. They were the ones who hanged Katie. She didn't do it herself. Various backstabbings and betrayals led to everyone dying. Then she sees ferrymen sucking their souls out. Oh,
yeah, it was a heist.
him.
It was a heist, and they killed everybody, and then they killed each other.
It was a heist until the demon showed up.
Yeah.
Epps returns to release Murphy, but she's too late as his compartment is flooded.
Well, I think the demon was spurring things along and pushing everybody's button and pointing them in the right direction, and making sure they did these things, and made sure the criminals knew about all this gold. Oh, you should go steal this, and
not a coincidence.
No, not at all.
Okay, so Murphy's dead. Meanwhile, the ship's engines eat Munder. Ferryman turns on Dodge, and they also end up fighting. Dodge shoots Ferryman with a shotgun at close range, but Ferryman gets back up.
Whoops.
Dodge tries
We find out who the demon is.
Yeah. Dodge tries to talk Epps into keeping all the gold, but Epps realizes that it's the gold that's cursed, not the ship. She's wired the whole place to blow up, and Dodge then morphs into Ferryman. Dodge was killed off screen somewhere. Ferryman explains that he's a salvager too, but he's a salvager of souls, working for hell.
Yeah, he gathers them, feeds on people's bad traits and makes them worse.
Yeah, they start to fight, but Epps detonates the explosives and starts the ship sinking fast. As the ship floods, Katie shows Epps the way out, and we see all the dead souls escaping as well. The next morning, Epps is picked up by a passing cruise ship. As she's loaded into the ambulance on land, she sees Ferryman loading his gold aboard that ship. It never ends.
Back to work.
Okay, so it's not as bad as a lot of people say. It has gotten another bad rap over the years. The characters do seem to make one stupid decision after another, but it doesn't get boring, and it's fairly well done. I'm not sure why they decided to kill Gabriel Byrne's character off screen. That was a weird choice. He's the big star. He was the main guy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not the main character, but he was the biggest star.
Big star, yeah.
Yeah, and they just locked him in a cell, and they came back and showed his dead body floating there.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay. The opening scene is an absolute classic, but the rest is pretty by the numbers and almost forgettable.
And reading some behind-the-scenes information on it, it was especially sprung, I guess, on Juliana, the main actress.
Main actress,
Yeah. This wasn't a horror movie to begin with. And they cast it. And basically she showed up, and some of the others, I guess, too, and said, here's your new script. We're in a gruesome horror movie now. Which, kind of threw them off.
What?
It said that she was not happy about that, and was not happy after it was done, that she was very displeased with the movie. And but that could.
What did they think they were signing up for?
That could have led to some of the awkwardness in the script too. Doing a last minute change and last minute rewrite like that. Yeah. But anyway,
all right,
it's there and it's happened.
Well, if you're curious, watch the first 10 minutes.
Oh, especially that. Yeah, yeah.
All right, and our newest film this week is one called Hellbender from 2021. Written and directed by John Adams, Zelda Adams, and Toby Poser. Stars Zelda Adams, Toby Poser, and Lulu Adams. Seems like it's an Adams family.
It's an Adams family thing. Yeah.
Runtime, hour and 26 minutes. Trailer on YouTube, and I think the movie itself was on Shudder.
Mm-hmm.
Between Shudder and Tubi, they've got everything.
Oh, they're great. Yeah.
Between the two.
Tubi is free also, just for the watching. You don't have to subscribe, but there's commercials on Tubi.
Yeah. Not excessive. Not as bad as Hulu.
No. Hulu's awful on commercials. Yeah.
What happened spoiler-free?
Well, this was a very interesting take on witch lore, with a young teen coming of age. The cinematography, effects, and acting were all really great. And it's a slow burn that takes you a while to figure out things as it goes along.
What is happening here?
Yeah.
Yes.
What witchery is this?
All right, well, we start out with a bunch of women hanging another woman in the woods. From their clothes, this looked like the 16 or 1700s, so, pilgrim days.
A while ago, yeah.
They pull the rope, and the victim goes up, choking and gagging. Soon she stops kicking. All done.
Nope.
Then the twitching and the growling starts. One of the women on the ground opens fires with a pistol, shooting repeatedly, but the victim just gets more agitated. Then the body ignites and launches up into the air like a bottle rocket. Credits roll.
Holy cow.
That's not the way those things are supposed to go.
Not a smooth execution, no.
Izzy and her mother are practicing in their two-person band called Hellbender, complete with costumes and makeup. We see that they live in a really isolated area out in the country on a big patch of land. While her mother's off to the store, Izzy is out in the woods and hears laughing out there. In town, an old man, probably confused, thinks the mother was his grandmother's nurse many years ago, but she couldn't be that old.
No, she couldn't.
Could she?
Yeah.
Izzy thinks the laugh in the woods was a ghost. Mother goes out to the woods later and assembles a talisman with sticks, berries, hair, and blood. That evening, Mother and Izzy eat moss and pine cones for dinner. Yum.
Yum?
Yeah.
Awful chewy.
Crunchy, too. You ever eat a pine cone?
No.
The next morning, Mother draws that same symbol in blood on the table. Izzy is out walking, and a strange man wanders in. He's lost in the woods and wants directions. Mother leads the man further into the woods and uses magic to turn him to dust. Poof.
Reluctantly. When she knows she has to, they can't
Was
have
she
it.
that reluctant, though?
Oh, I think she was, yeah. Very reluctant afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's clear that Mother doesn't want Izzy to have any outside influences. Izzy believes she's sick and contagious, and at least that's what Mother's always told her. Izzy goes off in the direction the man spoke of and runs into another girl, Amber, who lives on the same mountain. Izzy knows she's breaking the rules, but she's homeschooled and never met anyone her own age before. It turns out this isn't even her house. She just breaks in from time to use the pool. While she's away, Mother goes into a locked room, touches a book, and gets a weird vision.
And that's got the most awesome locking mechanism she's got on the door.
You put your hand up on the door and a key comes out of your hand.
Yeah, and then she goes in the room and there's this table full of keys, or I guess every time it happens.
A different key every time.
It produces a key, and she's just been saving them.
Izzy tells her mother that she'd like to play Hellbender in front of a real audience. Mother warns that Izzy can't be around people. Ever. Izzy goes back to the pool house with Amber and a couple of other teens. Izzy plays the drums for them and they love it. She also drinks her first tequila, along with an earthworm placed inside. Not a tequila worm, just an earthworm. That was weird.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a weird, dare you to kind of thing.
Yeah.
Dare you to do it.
She mentions that she's a strict vegetarian, but eats the worm anyway. She then screams in horror after swallowing it. The owners of the house arrive and everyone runs for the hills. On the way home, Izzy hears voices in the woods again, and the owner of the house confronts Izzy, and she looks at him funny. When Izzy gets home, Mother is not pleased. She explains that she ate a living worm. Izzy says that Amber's uncle has been missing for 2 days. He's the one that Mother dusted in the woods. Izzy goes into Mother's secret room and finds the book. She also gets a vision. Mother explains that the worm didn't make Izzy crazy. The worm's life did. Try a rat, or a dog, or a deer. It's all in the pumping of blood. What happens if we eat people? Then you'll know power. Ooh, was that a dream or was that real? Did she really say that?
I think they were communicating in a dream.
I think they were, yeah.
Yeah, they woke up and, it was real, but not.
Because later on, Mother seems surprised to find all the dead animals around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mother admits that Izzy isn't really sick. She and her mother split and eat a caterpillar. Then they both do some magic. Half a caterpillar. Izzy spends several days practicing her magic and getting used to it, and we see that she goes out at night and does things that she lies about to her mother. Mother finds bones in the woods. I've been seeing a lot of bones lately, all stripped clean lately, she says.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't know what Izzy's been doing at night.
She's been busy at night, eating life things.
A ranger comes around asking about the missing man. He suspects a mountain lion. They say they haven't seen anyone, and he goes away. Mother starts to find the magical symbol next to some of the bones in the snow. She starts figuring out something is up with Izzy. I love you so much I might eat you up, Mother says. She then extols the wonders of eating maggots. She'd be right at home on Ghost Ship, wouldn't she?
Yeah, Renfield had the right idea.
Well, then they get high on life force and puke blood on each other. You know, as families do.
Mm-hmm.
Mother relates that Izzy's grandmother once ate an entire village, then sewed her mouth shut out of guilt. She was then hanged. Mother thinks that she's about 147 years old. So that must have been the grandmother there we saw in the opening credits.
I think it was supposed to be, yeah.
Izzy goes to town and apologizes to Amber. Amber says that the house owner was attacked by a wild animal. Amber is rude, and Izzy doesn't like that. Mother finds her secret room unlocked and that her book is gone. She immediately knows what Izzy has become. She then finds a really strange living tunnel in the basement and starts crawling through it.
Izzy's doing her own magic.
That's just weird.
Mm-hmm.
She finds Amber down there, and she's in pretty bad shape. This is Izzy's happy place, and Izzy arrives. Mother swears she raised Izzy to be good, not evil. And Izzy tells Mother that she's in denial. She has every bit the monster that Izzy has become. It runs in the family. Will they make peace, or will they just have dinner? The visuals here are excellent. Great cinematography, especially in all the outdoor scenes in the woods and mountains. It's a very natural kind of place.
They live on a big property.
The performances are good, and although we developed theories early on, we had no idea exactly where it was all going.
Yeah, I kind of wondered early on if she was like a golem or something that Mother had just created.
Something not even real.
And that's why she could never leave, because she would, fall apart into dust again or something.
Or a ghost or something like that.
Yeah. All kinds of possibilities that made you wonder about.
It's almost like we get to learn about a race of human-like beings, very powerful, who have lived alongside the human race since the beginning. It's a slow burn, and you know it's not going to end well for someone, but even up to the end, you aren't sure who's going to survive all this.
Big thumbs up on that one.
Very cool. Yeah, we both liked it. And, again, that one's on Shudder.
Mm-hmm.
And that's our show for this week.
Yay!
Yay! Tune in next week for 4 more horror films and a short film, and we'll have some good stuff for you. Don't know what yet. I think next week we're going to mostly cover newish films. 2015, 2021, some newer stuff.
There's a new vampire one out there, a new Dracula one that sounded interesting.
Dracula, the original living vampire. Yes.
Yeah.
Hellblazers, starring Tony Todd, and he's in it for at least 5 minutes.
And it's like a montage of classic, I say classic, see, I didn't say old people, classic horror actors.
Bring out your soon-to-be dead.
Meg Foster, Bruce Dern, it's got numerous.
A lot of old classic people in it. What else? The Last Radio Call.
Mm-hmm.
And there's
one
Darling.
More.
Darling, that was the one, yes.
Mm-hmm.
A black and white, sort of artsy kind of psychotic murderer film.
Yep.
All right, well, I'm Brian.
I'm Kevin.
And we'll see you next week.
See ya.